April 15th, 1942, 1400 hours, Leh Airfield, New Guinea. The heat on the runway is physical. It shimmers off the crushed coral, distorting the air like a funhouse mirror. The jungle steams, smelling of rot and ozone. But the machines sitting on the tarmac are pristine. They are Mitsubishi A6M-0s. To the Allied pilots terrified of them, they are ghosts. To the men who fly them, they are swords. Petty Officer First Class Saburo Sakai climbs out of his cockpit. He is soaked in sweat, his flight suit clinging to his frame like a second skin. He has just returned from a sweep over Port Moresby. He is exhausted, bone-deep, soul-crushing exhaustion that comes from flying 6-7 hours a day, every day, for months. But his landing was perfect. It always is. He walks toward the command tent, his movements precise. He passes a group of mechanics bowing low. In the Imperial Japanese Navy Air Service, a pilot is not just a soldier. He is a god. He is the tip of the Emperor's spear. Inside the tent, the mood is one of arrogant invincibility. The commanders are drinking tea, laughing over the after-action reports. "The Americans," a lieutenant sneers, tapping a cigarette on a map case. "They fly like buffalo. They turn when they should climb. They climb when they should dive. It is unsporting." The room erupts in laughter. It is easy to laugh when you are winning. For 4 months, since Pearl Harbor, the Japanese Navy has swept across the Pacific. They have humiliated the British, the Dutch, and the Americans. The Zero is faster, more maneuverable, and deadlier than anything the Allies can put in the air. But the reason for this dominance isn't just the machine, it's the man. Sakai sits down, wiping grease from his forehead. He thinks back to Tsuchiura, the flight training school in Japan. It wasn't a school. It was a torture chamber designed to break the human spirit and rebuild it as a weapon. The selection process was insane. In 1937, out of 1,500 applicants for the Navy pilot program, only 70 were accepted. Of those 70, only 25 graduated. 25 men, out of 1,500. They were beaten with baseball bats for the slightest infraction. They were made to stand on their heads for hours to sharpen their vision. They were forced to swim for miles in freezing water to build endurance. They were taught to fly without radios, navigating by the stars and the feel of the wind. The result was a cadre of pilots who were, man for man, the best aviators the world had ever seen. They didn't fly the plane. They wore it. They could sense a stall before the instrument panel twitched. They could hit a turning target from 400 yards while inverted. "We are the Eagles," the commander says, pouring sake. "The Americans are sparrows. They send us bank clerks and farm boys. We send them samurai." But Sakai isn't laughing. He looks around the room. He sees the faces of his wingmen. Hiroyoshi Nishizawa, the devil of Rabaul. Toshio Ota. They are the elite of the Tainan Air Group, but they are tired. "Commander," Sakai asks quietly, "when are the replacements arriving? We are down to 18 operational aircraft." The commander waves a hand dismissively. "Reinforcements are coming from the training squadrons in Kyushu, but..." He pauses, his lip curling. "The reports say the new cadets are inadequate. They lack the spirit." This is the fatal flaw, invisible in the glare of victory. Japan treats pilot training as an art form. It takes 3 years to make a Zero pilot. They demand perfection. If a student fails a single maneuver, he is washed out. The system is designed to produce a handful of deadly masterpieces. It is not designed to replace losses. "The Americans," the commander continues, "are panicking. Intelligence says they are rushing pilots through training. 3 months. Can you imagine? Sending a boy into the sky with 3 months of flight time?" The officers chuckle again. To them, it is a joke. A 3-month pilot is just a target, a slow-moving drone to be slashed out of the sky by a master swordsman. Sakai nods, but a cold knot forms in his stomach. He remembers a fight last week, an American P-40 Warhawk. The pilot was clumsy, yes. He couldn't turn, but he was aggressive. He came head-on, guns blazing, refusing to break. Sakai shot him down, of course. But for a split second, looking through his gun sight, he saw something that terrified him more than skill. He saw numbers. He looked at the horizon and saw 3 more Americans taking the dead man's place. Japan has started a war with a nation of factories. The commanders in the tent see the American pilot as a bank clerk. They don't realize that the bank clerk is backed by an industrial training pipeline that is about to turn flight into an assembly line. The commanders are laughing at the amateurs, but the amateurs are coming, and unlike the samurai, there are millions of them. July 20th, 1942, 900 hours, Naval Air Station, Pensacola, Florida. The air over the Gulf of Mexico isn't filled with the silence of the samurai. It is vibrating with the roar of radial engines. A chaotic, buzzing swarm of bright yellow SNJ Texan trainers fills the sky from horizon to horizon. Down on the tarmac, Lieutenant Jack "Pappy" Colby, a veteran of the Coral Sea, watches the chaos. He lights a cigarette, shielding the flame from the prop wash of a taxiing plane. He looks at the faces of the cadets climbing out of the cockpits. They are kids, just kids, dairy farmers from Wisconsin, mechanics from Detroit, college dropouts from Yale. They don't look like warriors. They look like they should be at a soda fountain. "Next batch," a loudspeaker barks. "Flight 19 to the line." This is the Civilian Pilot Training Program, CPTP, in full swing. While the Japanese treat flight training as a sacred, exclusionary art, the Americans are treating it like building a Ford. It is mass production. It is an assembly line of death. Japan graduates pilots in the dozens. Pensacola is graduating them in the thousands. Colby throws his cigarette down and crushes it. He knows these boys aren't natural flyers. They don't have the wind sense of a Saburo Sakai. If you put one of these kids in a dogfight against a Japanese ace right now, one-on-one, he's dead in 30 seconds. But the United States Navy has figured out a secret. You don't need to be a genius to kill a genius. You just need math and friends. In the briefing room, the chalkboard is covered in diagrams. The instructor, a dour-faced commander, is tapping a piece of chalk against a drawing of two planes weaving back and forth. "Listen up," he shouts. "The Zero can outturn you. It can outclimb you. If you try to dogfight him in a phone booth, you will lose. Do not, I repeat, do not turn with a Zero." The cadets scribble furiously in their notebooks. "Instead," the commander says, drawing a sharp line, "you use the Thak weave." Named after Lieutenant Commander John Thak, it is a tactic born of desperation and cold logic. It requires two pilots to fly as a team. When a Zero gets on the tail of one American, the two planes turn toward each other, crossing paths. The bait drags the Japanese pilot right across the nose of his wingman. It turns the Zero's greatest strength, its maneuverability, into a trap. It doesn't require samurai reflexes. It requires discipline. It requires trusting the guy next to you to shoot the bandit off your tail before he kills you. "You are not knights," the instructor barks. "You are a team. You fly together, you fight together, you come home together." Outside, the sheer scale of the logistics is staggering. Fuel trucks are constantly refilling tanks. Mechanics are swapping out engines in hours, not days. The cafeteria serves 15,000 meals a day. In Japan, if a pilot washes out, he is shamed. Here, if a pilot washes out, he becomes a navigator, or a gunner, or a mechanic. Nothing is wasted. The system is designed to absorb failure and keep moving. Private Bill Morris, a 19-year-old from Ohio, sits in the cockpit of his Wildcat for his first solo gunnery run. He is nervous. His hands are sweating on the stick. He remembers the Japanese propaganda broadcasts he heard on the radio about the invincible eagles of the Emperor. He pushes the throttle forward. The Pratt & Whitney engine roars. He is not a samurai. He is a high school quarterback who likes fixing tractors. But as he lifts off the runway, joining a formation of 4 other Wildcats, he feels something the Japanese didn't account for. He feels confident, not because he is the best, but because he knows exactly what to do. Check 6. Stick with your wingman. Short bursts. Deflection shooting. He looks over his shoulder. Behind him, another flight of 4 is taking off, and behind them, another, and another. The Japanese commanders in Rabaul are still laughing at the amateurs. They don't see the cloud of yellow jackets rising from the Florida coast. They don't see the thousands of Bill Morrises, trained to be good enough, armed with a tactic that makes them deadly, and backed by a nation that can build a carrier every 3 months. The assembly line is running at full capacity, and it is about to ship its product to the Pacific. November 14th, 1942, 11:30 hours, over Guadalcanal. The sky above the Solomon Islands is a chaotic tapestry of flak bursts and burning metal. To the Japanese pilots of the Tainan Air Group, this place is not a battlefield. It is a graveyard. Petty Officer Hiroyoshi Nishizawa, the Devil, pulls his Zero into a tight loop. He is skeletal. His face is gaunt, his eyes sunken into dark hollows. He hasn't slept in 3 days. He is shaking with the chills of malaria, but he flies because there is no one else. Below him, the jungle of Guadalcanal is a green hell. Above him, the sky is full of wildcats. Nishizawa spots a straggler, a fat, blue Grumman F4F wildcat, banking slowly to the left. It looks like an easy kill. He dives. The Zero screams, the airframe shuddering. He has made this kill 100 times. The American is slow. He is clumsy. He is dead. But as Nishizawa lines up his sights, something happens that hasn't happened before. The American doesn't panic. He doesn't turn away. He turns in. And suddenly, from the right, another wildcat appears. It is the wingman. The 2 American planes cross paths in a perfect scissor maneuver. The Thak weave. Nishizawa is forced to break off. If he had followed the first target, the second would have shredded his cockpit. He curses, pulling the stick back, climbing away. These are not the buffalo he fought in April. These men are disciplined. They are fighting as a pack. Back at the Japanese base in Rabaul, the situation is desperate. The Eagles are dying. And for every veteran who goes down in flames over the Solomons, there is silence. The replacement pipeline from Japan is a trickle. The new pilots arriving at Rabaul have less than 100 hours of flight time. They can take off and land, but they cannot fight. They are terrified. Nishizawa lands his Zero. He stumbles out of the cockpit. There are no mechanics bowing today. The ground crew is sick with dysentery. The fuel trucks are empty. "Where is Ota?" he asks a mechanic. The mechanic just shakes his head and points to the smoking horizon. The meat grinder of the Solomons is doing its work. It is a war of attrition, and Japan is losing the math. For every American plane shot down, the pilot often bails out over Allied lines, is rescued by a PBY Catalina, and is back in a new cockpit within a week. When a Japanese pilot is shot down, he is lost forever, along with 3 years of irreplaceable training. Across the water, at Henderson Field, the scene is very different. Lieutenant Joe Foss of the U.S. Marine Corps lands his Wildcat. It's riddled with bullet holes. He climbs out, grinning. He is tired, yes, but he is alive. "Hey, Joe," a crew chief yells. "New batch just came in from the States. 12 of them." Foss looks at the transport plane taxiing in. 12 fresh pilots. They are green, sure. They look like they've never seen a jungle. But they are healthy. They are well fed. And they have been trained at Pensacola to fly the Weave. "Get them in the briefing tent," Foss says, lighting a cigar. "I'll teach them how to stay alive." The difference is stark. The Americans are running a rotation system. After a certain number of missions, a pilot is sent home to be an instructor. He takes his hard-won experience and pours it into the heads of the next generation. The knowledge multiplies. The Japanese keep their aces on the front line until they die. The knowledge dies with them. As 1943 dawns, the invincible Zero pilots are becoming an endangered species. They are being ground down by a relentless tide of competency. The Americans aren't winning because they have better aces. They are winning because they have average pilots who fight like a machine, while the Japanese are forced to throw children into the cockpit of a sword. And now, a new sound is heard over the Pacific. A deeper, throatier roar. The Grumman F6F Hellcat is arriving. It is faster than the Zero. It climbs better. It has armor plating that can shrug off Japanese gunfire. And it is being flown by the thousands of Bill Morrises who have spent the last year training for exactly this moment. The trap is set. The samurai are dead or dying. The factory has arrived. June 19th, 1944, 1000 hours, the Philippine Sea. On the bridge of the Japanese flagship Taiho, Vice Admiral Jisaburo Ozawa watches the horizon with a confidence that borders on delusion. He has assembled the greatest carrier force Japan has seen since Midway. 9 carriers, 450 aircraft. He believes he has the advantage. His planes have longer range. He can launch his strike from 300 miles out, hit the Americans, and land safely, while the U.S. fleet is still searching for him. It is a textbook strategy designed by brilliant minds in Tokyo. But Ozawa has made a fatal calculation. He is counting planes, not pilots. Launch complete, Admiral, a staff officer reports. Raid 1 is inbound to the American fleet. Ozawa nods. He imagines his samurai descending on the American carriers, weaving through the flak, delivering death with surgical precision. He is imagining ghosts. In the cockpit of a Zero in Raid 1, 19-year-old Ensign Kenjiro Ota is sweating so hard his goggles are slipping. He has less than hours of flight time in this aircraft. He was rushed through training in 3 months. He has never fired his guns in combat. He has never landed on a carrier in rough seas. "Stay in formation!" his squadron leader screams over the radio, but Ota can't. The throttle control is twitchy. He drifts left, then right. The formation, which should be a tight, deadly spearhead, is a ragged, straggling blob. They are flying at 20,000 feet, straight and level, burning fuel, terrified of the empty blue space around them. 70 miles to the east, inside the Combat Information Center of the USS Lexington, the American radar operators are watching the blob. Raid 1 detected, range 150 miles, bearing 260, altitude 24,000. The American response is not panic, it is a drill. Scramble all fighters, the air boss orders. Vector 270, Angels 25, intercept. On the flight deck, the engines of the Grumman F-6F Hellcats roar to life. These are not the Wildcats of 1942. The Hellcat was built with one purpose, to kill the Zero. It is faster by 40 knots. It carries 6.50 caliber machine guns. It has armor that can stop a 7.7 millimeter bullet cold. But the real weapon is the pilot. Commander David McCampbell, leading the fighters from the USS Essex, climbs through the clouds. He looks at his formation. It is perfect. His wingmen are tucked in tight. They are relaxed. They have trained for this scenario 1,000 times over Lake Michigan. They know exactly where to go, when to turn, and when to shoot. "Tally-ho," McCampbell says calmly over the radio. "Bandits at 11 o'clock low." Below them, the Japanese formation looks like a school of confused minnows. They aren't weaving. They aren't climbing to meet the threat. They are just flying. "Drop tanks," McCampbell orders. The silver fuel tanks tumble away. The Hellcats dive. What happens next is not a battle. It is an execution. Ensign Ota sees the Hellcats diving on him. He tries to pull up, to turn, to do something, but his muscles freeze. He remembers his training, the rushed lectures, the diagrams he didn't understand. He yanks the stick too hard. The Zero shudders into a high-speed stall. Rat-tat-tat-tat. 6 streams of incendiary tracers slam into his wing root. The fuel tank explodes. Ota never even sees the face of the man who kills him. All around him, the sky turns into a slaughterhouse. The Japanese planes are falling like leaves in autumn. Burning Zeros tumble past plunging Jill torpedo bombers. The air is filled with black parachutes and debris. "Splashes 1, a voice yells over the American radio. "Splashes 2, I got another one." "Hey, save some for us," another pilot laughs. It is so one-sided, so brutally efficient, that a pilot from the USS Lexington keys his mic and utters the phrase that will define the day. "Hell, this is like an old-time turkey shoot down home." Back on the Taiho, Admiral Ozawa waits for the reports of American carriers burning. Instead, he gets silence. Then, the shattered remnants of Raid 1 begin to return. Or rather, they try to. A single Zero, smoking, tries to land on the Zuikaku. The pilot is wounded. He comes in too fast, bounces, and crashes into the barrier. "Where are the others?" Ozawa asks, his face pale. "Gone, sir," the surviving air officer whispers. "They are all gone." By sunset, the numbers are apocalyptic. The Japanese have lost 3 carriers and over 400 aircraft. The Americans have lost 29 planes. The loss of the ships is bad, but the loss of the pilots is catastrophic. The 400 men who died today were the last scrapings of the barrel. They were the teenagers who were supposed to replace the veterans of 1942. Now they are dead, and there is no one left behind them. Commander McCampbell lands his Hellcat on the Essex. He is tired, but exhilarated. He walks into the ready room, grabbing a coffee. "How was it, Skipper?" a mechanic asks. McCampbell shakes his head in disbelief. They didn't even try to dogfight. They just flew in a straight line and waited to die. The American training pipeline, the factories, the schools, the rotation system, has produced a generation of pilots who are technically superior, tactically sound, and utterly lethal. The Japanese warrior spirit has been broken by the cold, hard reality of industrial warfare. The sky over the Pacific is now American property, and for the Japanese Empire, there are no more eagles left to send. October 25th, 1944, 1300 hours, Mabalacat Airfield, Philippines. The runway is silent. No mechanics are running. No fuel trucks are moving. There are no formations of elite pilots practicing loops in the tropical sun. There are only a handful of Zeros, battered and worn, their paint peeling in the humidity. Vice Admiral Takajiro Onishi stands before the assembled pilots of the 201st Air Group. He looks at their faces. They are children, 16, 17 years old. Their uniforms are too big. Their eyes are wide with a mixture of terror and fanaticism. These are not the men who attacked Pearl Harbor. Those men are dead. These are not the men who fought at Midway. Those men are dead. These are not even the men who died in the turkey shoot. Those men are dead. These are the leftovers. They have, on average, 40 hours of flight time. They can barely take off. They cannot dogfight. They cannot deflect, shoot. Against a Hellcat flown by a U.S. Navy lieutenant with 400 hours of combat experience, they are simply targets. Onishi knows this. The Empire knows this. The training pipeline has collapsed. The factories in Japan are being bombed into rubble by B-29 superfortresses that roam the sky with impunity because there are no interceptors left to stop them. The Empire is in grave danger, Onishi says, his voice cracking. The Americans are at our doorstep. We have no carriers. We have no fuel. We have no time to train you. He pauses. The jungle insects hum in the heavy silence. I ask of you, he continues, to crash your aircraft into the enemy ships. One plane, one ship. It is the only way. The kamikaze tactic is born. It is the ultimate admission of failure. It is the military equivalent of bankruptcy. A nation that once prided itself on the exquisite skill of its aviators, men who could drift a zero like a leaf in the wind, is now reduced to turning its pilots into guidance systems for flying bombs. The young pilots bow. They drink the ceremonial sake. They tie the hachimaki headbands around their foreheads. They climb into their Zeros, heavily laden with a 250-kilogram bomb bolted directly to the fuselage. They will not need landing gear. They will not need radios. They will not need to know how to dogfight. They just need to steer. Meanwhile, 3,000 miles away, the American machine is still accelerating. January 1945. Naval Air Station, Corpus Christi, Texas. Ensign Mike "Red" Stevens is graduating. He stands in a formation of 500 other pilots. They are tanned, fit, and brimming with confidence. Red has logged 350 hours of flight time. He is instrument rated. He has practiced carrier landings until he can do them in his sleep. He knows the Thack weave, the scissors, the high side gunnery run. He has flown the Texan, the Wildcat, and the Corsair. He is not a samurai. He is a professional. Congratulations, gentlemen, the Admiral says. You are the finest naval aviators in the world. You have the best training, the best equipment, and the best support. Red throws his cap in the air. He is going to war. But unlike the Japanese boy climbing into his coffin plane, Red expects to come home. He knows that if he gets shot down, a submarine will likely pick him up. He knows that if he gets sick, a doctor will treat him. He knows that if his plane breaks, a mechanic will fix it. He is part of a system that values his life enough to invest in it. August 15th, 1945. The Sea of Japan. The war ends, not with a bang of aerial combat, but with a voice on the radio. The Emperor speaks. It is over. High above the Japanese home islands, a flight of F-4U Corsairs is on patrol. They look down at the green land below. There are no Zeros rising to meet them. The sky is empty. The Japanese commanders who laughed in 1942 are gone. Most are dead. The few who remain are sitting in the ashes of their cities, wondering how the soft Americans defeated the spirit of the Yamato. They forgot the lesson of modern war. Spirit breaks. Steel does not. Japan built a sword, sharp, beautiful, and brittle. America built a factory, ugly, relentless, and overwhelming. The American pilot training program didn't just produce pilots, it produced a force of nature. It took farm boys and turned them into the rulers of the sky, not by magic, but by math, logistics, and the unglamorous grind of standard operating procedure. As the Corsairs turn back toward their carriers, the sun glints off their dark blue wings. They are the masters of the air now, and they will remain so for the rest of the century.